the Evolution Security Podcast. All right, everyone, we would like to welcome Guy Schnitzler from DFW Defensive Training and Immediate Action Combatives and Palisade Training Group. How are you doing, Guy?
I'm good, Aaron. How about you, Eric? How are you?
Doing wonderful. It's about time we have you on the show, Guy. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate y'all hosting me and having me here today.
Oh, it's great that people like you come on. So it helps us a ton. So again, the thank you is to you. Now, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Okay, yeah, that could be a little bit about. Well, my name is Guy Schnitzler. As Aaron said, I am the owner of DFW Defensive Training. I am an instructor under Cecil Burch of Immediate Action Combatives material, and I am a co-owner with Steve Moses and Alec McBee of Palisade Training Group here in DFW. As far as what I do, I like the old school phrase, aviation security specialist. Yeah, y'all can go figure that out from there. But I like the acronym because it suits me fine when you put it together. And in fact, today is the 60th anniversary of us being stood up. So that was just one of the little tidbits. We've been around for 60 years now as an organization, agency. We belong to DHS and then, unfortunately, Transportation Security Administration. Just like, okay, because everybody seems to hate that. I've been here. I'm coming up on 19 and a half years next week. I'll hit 20 in September. Prior to that, I was 10 years with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, patrol officer, community resource officer. And then while in college, I did 6 years in the Army National Guard in North Carolina up to the 30th grade as 11 Bravo infantryman.
Awesome.
Well, and Guy, I think, your job, your current job is extremely important to a lot of us, and thank you for all you've done both in law enforcement and your current agency and back in the day as an 11 Bravo. I think we've joked about recently I was a signal nerd, so you guys doing that grunt work, Yeah,
but we can't do it without communications, man. It just, none of this can be done without communications. So if you're not communicating, well, something's going to bad happen somewhere. And well, actually, the explosion of my agency is from a lack of communication. If you look back at 9/11 and see that there was no communication between the military intelligence community and domestic law enforcement. So
that has certainly improved, but it still needs to get better. I'll just say that.
It does.
Well, I would like to highlight, and Aaron, I think will agree, we've spent quite a bit of time with you recently. Wanted to really hit hard on the Tulsa IA Combatives class that we did. What a wonderful time. You and Cecil did an incredible job. We already had Cecil on for that AAR, but man, just a wonderful time. And I also recently, which we're going to do a little discussion about here in a second, did 8 hours with you down in Jacksonville. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. But man, thank you so much for your instruction and your leadership in our growth for sure.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So with that said, I don't know if you can, and if for some reason we go down a road you don't want to go down, we can edit it out. But can you talk a little bit about some of your memorable moments as an aviation security specialist? Can you hit on any of that?
Oh yeah. fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I've not had anything big, I don't know, not the word I'm looking for, but nothing that would made the news. That was always my refrain is when I'd get home is, how'd your day go? Well, I didn't make the news, which is a good thing. Yeah, we had one incident. We had this guy sitting up in first class. He was in the bulkhead seats. Had a pretty lady sitting next to him, and he was flirting with her the whole time. And I guess thought he was being cute. This is probably 2005, so everything's still fresh. The flight attendant, number one flight attendant, put the cart across the aisle, locked it down. Well, she put it across. She didn't lock it down. Thought she did. Pilot or one of the co-pilot came out to use the lavatories, and this guy thinks he's being cute and not realizing how loud he's talking was. He's like, yeah, I could take over the plane right now. I can really hijack it. So you see, this cart's not locked. And he kicked a little bit. And about that time, I didn't realize my partner who was hearing it also, but we both perked up and like, oh yeah, here we go. He said, yeah. And then, they still had the wine glasses. They were drinking wine. He said, yeah, I could just, break the stem off. You have the stem, break the glass off, add the stem, put it in my fist. We're like, like two greyhounds at the gate ready to go after the rabbit. And it's just like, and then he went back to normal. I was like, that's going to be a bad day for you, buddy. But fortunately he was being dumb and didn't follow through. But that
he was just trying to join the Mile High Club, right?
Exactly. He was trying to impress this lady and thought he was being cute and didn't realize with the way the overhead bins are, they carry sound. And, that's our job. So we're paying attention. We hear that. We hear, take over plane, hijacking. It's like waking up an old dog. It's like, kids, come up. What was that? And it's like, oh, yeah, this is what we've been here for. Please, please.
Well, let's hope his idiocy didn't, help him become successful with that Mile High Club goal.
Not on that plane. I don't know if he hooked up with her later, but after that, it's just like, but talk about an adrenaline strike. You're about going, oh yeah, go ahead. It's gonna be a bad day for you, sir, but he didn't. But that probably the most fun or exciting might be a better word. But nothing really. We've had a couple of drunks, and they've always kind of settled down when we approached them and talked them. It's kind of feast or famine for us. I've got buddies that have had 3 or 4 incidents on a plane, whether it be a drunk, EDP, emotionally disturbed person, some domestic violence, and then the rest of us is like nothing. It's crickets. You're like,
Well, Guy, let's face it. Your guy's job is very much a deterrence job, and most folks now know, at least after 9/11, that it's very high, or it's a high likelihood that a team of you guys are going to be on there. So I think that may also contribute to the fact that you haven't had a whole lot of interesting situations because deterrence works, right?
Yes, we're insurance. That's why we're there. Last line of defense, first line of defense, however you want to term it. Really, we teach the crew member self-defense course, and really our flight attendants will be the first line of defense, and that's the way we train them. And then if we get involved, it's probably going to go loud. Believe me, we'll go loud real quick. But on the flip side, depending on where you're playing, it may not be loud. Distance on a plane really mutes the sound more so than you would get outside. I think being in a linear tube like that, it would magnify it, but you get back 10 or 15 rows, you may not even realize what you heard.
Well, Guy, I know you as a highly developed shooter, but I'm curious. I mean, you guys are required. I know at least my only experience with some of your guys' shooting qualifications is from Mike Seeklander, and it appeared to me that they were fairly challenging. But I guess my question to you is, you're the type of individual that seeks all kinds of training, which we're going to hit on here in just a minute, outside of your job, which I'm going to guess is still yet unique. But do you also, I mean, are a lot of the other agents that you work with? Do they possess on par a decent amount of shooting skills, I'm assuming?
Yes. As far as federal agencies and a non-tactical type unit, so outside of like a SWAT or HRT, we have the highest shooting standards in the federal government. We shoot mainly due to logistics. We shoot the FLETC PPC course of fire, and to qualify on that and to keep your firearm, you have to score a 255 out of 300, which is 85%. So everybody has to shoot 85%. By FLETC standards, that makes everybody in our agency available for their instructor schools, the firearm instructor schools. So, yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff, Guy. Well, Aaron, what you got, man? You got any questions for Guy?
Sure. So Eric alluded to it just a little bit ago, but we would like to hear a bit more about what we would like to call your life as a training vagabond. Why don't you tell us about this life of perpetual training, the concept that I like to call the student teacher?
Okay. Well, I came out of the started my career with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. Started the academy in November of 93, graduated March of 94. Of course, always kind of interested in martial arts, but never really got into them. I did Aikido when Steven Seagal was making movies and big thing in the late 80s and early 90s. We had a Aikido club at NC State, and I was in there when my schedule allowed. But I'm a reformed gun guy, to be honest. I was a gun. So I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be running and gunning on the streets. Well, I ran and gunned, and I pointed my gun out at a lot of people. Never shot anybody, but pointed the gun at them. But I ended up laying hands on people a lot more than even pointed guns at them. The areas I worked in Charlotte were probably the one of the two highest crime, highest drug rate, poverty rate in the state of North Carolina at the time. And guns came out often. Hands, like I said, laid on hands. So I started looking around like, yeah, I definitely need some kind of hand-to-hand skills. Ended up in Kanshiru Kempo Karate because the sensei there was he was a sergeant on our vice narcotics, and he had worked the SWAT team too. So I'm like, okay, this is this should give me what I need because someone's experienced. He's got street time. He should know what we need. Unfortunately, it was just at the start of the UFC. I missed the importance of the combat sports. Got sucked into the sport versus street argument, which is like, I look back on that as just totally ignorant. It's like, yeah, I was slow. I should have jumped over in the police athletic league boxing club or something, but we live and learn. So I did that, and probably about 5-6 years in, I was 5 or 6 years in, I ended up having to had a warrant on a young lady who was high on crack at the time, and our partner and I was trying to get her cuffed up, and we couldn't get her cuffed. Our car was down the street, and he ran down the street to get the car while I was trying to deal with her. I mean, if she was 100 pounds, soaking wet, that would have been it. But I've never struggled with anybody that was just pulling away. She wasn't fighting. It wasn't. And I mean, I used every joint lock and stuff I knew at the time. I'm like, this ain't working. I ended up basically putting her face down and straddling her back while 6 lanes of traffic went by. Thank God we didn't have cameras on the phones at the time then. But I'm like, okay, this ain't working. Then wasn't shortly thereafter I ended up moving to Texas and taking this job. And it's like, yeah, I need something that works better than what we need, and ended up in jiu-jitsu. Started taking jiu-jitsu. Was one of our instructors, a former SVD, or I'm sorry, I'm screwing that up. He was a SEAL guy out of Hawaii, and he was big in jiu-jitsu, and he said, this is what you need. You need grappling, you need a little boxing. So I followed that advice and got into jiu-jitsu, and then a couple of coworkers and I started training together, and we got heavily into boxing because we were going to do a Guns and Hoses boxing match, or charity match. So I started boxing and discovered even more than with my Kempo, I really like to hit people. I'm a headhunter, so when I box, I hit people in the head. I just, I was a bruiser basically. I'd go toe to toe, and it's like now at 52, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't so smart. So kind of backed off on that. I did box probably about 5-6 years. Still dabbled in jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and then I was at a ground-based assignment at that time. I was in our local operations, scheduling, planning the guys for flying, and I jumped over in. I was doing the boxing, then when I went back, rotated back to flying, I went back to jiu-jitsu, and that was 11. Got real heavy in jiu-jitsu, started training here in Dallas. Almost a lot of people here at that time were black belts under Carlos Machado here. So started training with one of his guys. Ended up missing all of 12 due to having a back surgery. 6 months, and it took me, missed 6 months of training and started real easing back into it. And then in 13, I hit it real heavy with my current coach, Brad Scott. Did that. But prior to that, when I moved down here, I found the old self-defense forums. I don't know if y'all remember that one or are familiar with it. And found all of Craig Douglas's, aka South Snark's, his photo progression sequence. I forget how they call them. They had different things working, like the default cover and the grappling and his knife stuff and shooting from the two. And I'm like, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I want to do. Took me a couple of years to get in a class with them. Finally did in September 2006, and I'm a Shivworks fan, all of them. Trained heavily with Craig till Cecil. I met Cecil at the Mid-Atlantic Tactical Conference in 2010. Started training with Cecil, started bringing him to Dallas every year. And there I also jumped in. I've trained with Larry Lindenman and Chris Fry, Paul Sharp, Dr. William Aprill before he passed, which led to other people. Like I've trained with Jerry Wetzl, and that's how I met Cliff of Hill Country Combatives, because when Jerry comes in, Cliff comes up and AIs for him. So training there. So continued training jiu-jitsu, earned my black belt in March of 20. So 2 years ago, I awarded my black belt there under Carlos Machado, under Brad Scott. Still box from time to time. Been doing, I was flying at the time for most of from August of 2009 to September of 19, I was flying. And at this point, in better part of almost 13 years of flying, I've got 5.5 million miles.
I was going to ask you that. You beat me to it.
Yes, at 5.5 million miles, and still earn my black belt. So I am pretty loyal to my coach, Brad, because he worked his schedule around mine. I mean, there was mornings, as much as I hated it, we were on the mats at 4:30 a.m. to get the training in, because either I was going international or I just come back and I had a domestic flight or something that day. He worked his schedule around me for years, and there's nothing I can do to repay that. Just my loyalty. So,
Guy, I want you to continue on, but I want to comment because I think this is important. When we had Pete Roberts of Origin on our show a while back, he said something that really stuck out to me, where he said that the special part, or the speciality of getting a black belt, he said part of it is the dedication necessary and the fact that life moves around you, and being dedicated to making that progress. And he even said it this way. He said the black belt in and of itself isn't that big of a deal. It's obviously the skill and the path, the journey to get there. But that really stuck to me. It's like, when we're doing all this, and we don't hold a candle to your level of capabilities and knowledge, but it does amaze me when we think about how life continues to move around everything we're doing in this path, and you still have to grind no matter what. And I just want to comment about that, because when you said that about all those miles that you flew, it's amazing that you still achieved that goal and many more. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, got a little ahead of myself, but yeah, I have a black belt in Kanshiru Kempo Karate also. And I was awarded a brown belt in Sansu Kung Fu And then early last year, talking to my old, who's my old boxing coach. He's a big, heavy into Sun Tzu Kung Fu under Ron Van Browning, Tim. He says, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and move that up to a black belt, because the test we did in May of 2009, he said, was a black belt level. And in fact, one of our board members was a longtime friend of Chuck Norris from when he used to, back in the 60s and 70s, an older gentleman.
Nice.
I forget his name now, but yeah, he was on the board, and he's like, yeah. In fact, I lost 10 or 15 minutes out of the day because I was sparring one of my instructors, and he caught me with a lead left kick right upside the neck. And that day I'm out 15, we're talking about 13 years later, still missing part of the day, but I get flashes every once in a while of closing in, clenching, shaking my head, working on the inside, and then coming together like 10 minutes later, when after the other three people on the 2 or 3 people that were testing at the time too had done their rounds with them. I'm like, and I looked at my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, I go, left lead kick. She goes, yeah. He was a really tight guy. I knew what he got me with as soon as I came to, but the main thing was we had work that getting knocked out on your feet and closing in and shaking it off and fighting instead of going down. And it worked. It's not like I'd been knocked out like that before and fought through it. It's just the training was just, get a hard hit, go in, start clinching, start working on the inside, boxing. And so
now, Guy,
yes, sir.
I've got a question, because you often hear about those people with missing time during an alien abduction. Are you sure you didn't get abducted during those 15 minutes or so?
I don't know. Maybe it was gone. Like I said, it was later. It's like, what, did I really?
They've got missing time that they can't account for.
Oh, I can't account for it. Well, Teresa was there, and Tim and Marta. They told me what happened.
Okay.
So it's like I was still there, but I wasn't there. I mean, it's like, I remember coming to, I was standing up. They had like a half wall for the mats, and then on the backside, on the other side were chairs and all that. I was standing there. I remember coming to looking like straws, and they slowly, little pinprick grew bigger. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So yeah, got that. But yeah, I've been into this. Like I said, after that first year on the streets and realized I'm laying hands on people a lot more than I'm shooting them. I need something else. So I started looking and training, and it's like, training the Kempo, I enjoyed, I loved, but it's like there was something missing there. And then when I really got introduced with Craig and the Jiu-Jitsu and grappling and the boxing and the importance of the combat sports, which allows you to train everything you can train without actually, you get to train it. People want to talk about eye gouge and all that. Well, how do you eye gouge in reality a partner? Well, you can if you want to have a training partner. Now, if you want to simulate and feel what it might feel like, grab you a grapefruit and do that. If you want the effects, you can get you a nice big tomato that's not quite right. And you can train it that way, but you can't train it with a partner. You can't train a lot of dirty tricks with a partner unless you have skills to get there. So when I found Craig's stuff, I really started training, looking for it hard, trying to get in a class. It took a couple years. Finally got an ECQC and trained with him every year, I think, except for 13 and 14 due to my schedule and not being able to get off. And 18, I've trained with him. I think I went in AI for him back in November down in the hill country at Uptex Range down there just outside of Bastrop. And that put me around 325, 330 hours with Craig since 2006. Training so much with Cecil, which I started training with in 10 after the Mid-Atlantic Tactical Conference. Other than 20 due to COVID, I brought him every year. And then this year we decided to go up to Mead Hall. But every year, other than 20, I brought him in. And he'll tell you, I'm the only one that's seen his material as much. He said there's one other guy that's coming up behind, but he hasn't seen it as much. He said even against his regular weekly guys there in Phoenix at Megatons, they haven't seen all the material that I have. Again, I'm right around the same hours with him as with Craig, about 320, 330. with Shivworks, yeah, I think I have 700 hours, just over 700 hours. I've trained with all the members, at least a little bit. Like I said, with Paul, I'm pushing 100 hours, maybe just under. I've taken his MDOC twice. Actually, I'm bringing him in June for MDOC 2.0, which is the newest version, the updated version.
When is that, Guy?
I believe it's June 4th and 5th. It's that very first weekend of June.
Oh, man, that's right against June travel to Rangemaster. Yeah. Man, I'd like to come for that.
Please do. If you can, that'd be great to have both.
See if I can make it happen, Guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've taken also, if you want an excellent class on advanced recoil management, Paul is an excellent coach on that. In fact, that's what I start all my private students on, is that recoil management that Paul teaches, which he learned from Dr. Middlebrooks. And it's when you get in there and you learn all the mechanics and all the way he treats it, and then you start seeing that instead of that side, its front sight go up and right when it starts running back and forth like a train. It's like, oh, it really wakes you up on what can be done. William, hosted him too. I'm probably pushing before he passed 50 or 60 hours over the years. His 5 W's of crime and victimization, and he was actually in his own right an excellent coach. So him and Paul teamed up. You would take Paul's class on Saturday, and you'd go through and you'd burn about 1,300 rounds and be fried, and you'd come in on Sunday, and then William had, and it was all like speed shooting 1-inch circles at 3 yards, representing or even smaller eye sockets, under speed. And you let go because you're so freaking tired from the day before. You just like, oh, okay, boom. And it was an interesting dynamic with those two. Larry, I've taken his SAP and Jack small impact weapon instructor class. Did that in 19. That's really, really, was it 19 or 18? 19. It was 19, December of 19. That's a really good class. Plus a few other hours. So I might be pushing around 20 hours with Larry and probably about 12 with Chris Fry. Chris is really hard to get up with. Most of the time with him has been at different conferences and all. So he's got some really good material for opening up a folding knife, like a Spyderco or something you have a clip on. So others, got a couple instructor certifications from Jerry Wetzl. I'm probably pushing about 80 or so hours with him on training. Taken, of course, Cliff was there for all those hours too. Like I said, I've learned something from Cliff, whether it's actual technique material or how to be a better coach by just watching him. Nice. When you're there with him this weekend, really pay attention to how he coaches and his coach's eye. It's like you'll see something and you'll be processing, and he's already 2 steps ahead, correcting somebody or giving him. He is an excellent coach. I've taken both his vehicle extraction and combatives course, which is great. I don't know if he's going to do any of that with y'all this weekend, and then his long rifle combatives course, and they're both really good. Who else? Ben Aubin, I was able to take one of his classes. Is everyday combatant. That's Cliff's. He was up here 2 years ago. Redbeard Combatives. We did his mat room class on Friday night, and then his shooting and combatives class on Saturday, and really, really good material.
He's on the short list for sure.
He's real good. He's a real good instructor. Considering he's coming.
Guy,
yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. Uh-huh. So, boiling that down, how many of these courses do you get to go to a year, do you think, on average?
Ooh. Yeah, probably.
Seems like it'd be once a month at least, or close to it.
Sometimes I've done 3 or 4 in a row, and there's a cost on that one. Oh yes, dear. Where are we going? Oh, you want to go there? Yes, dear. We're going there this year. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think 10. I hit 3 classes with Craig in 2010. I heard EWO, ECQC, actually 4. Mid-Atlantic Tactical Conference, and then AMIS, all in 1 year with Craig.
Jealous.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah. Well, I traveled a lot, and then from working a lot, that's what caused me to start bringing Cecil into Dallas. Is like, I'm tired of traveling for classes because I'd go on a 3-day international, and Tuesday night, other than packing my bags for the trip, okay, I'm going to this class up in Oklahoma City. That's a 3.5-hour drive, so I got to get up at 3, got to be at the door at 3:30, maybe 4 at the latest to be there for a start. So I'd had everything packed up in the garage when I left for my international. I'd come home, see my wife, and eat dinner, and crawl in bed and get up and go. And it's just like after a couple of years, like, I'm tired. So who else? John Valentine. He did a class with Marshall Luton up there at what I think they're calling it the defense or DSA, whatever they're calling it now up there in Tulsa. Really, really good material. I stole some material from him. The way he teaches, well, you saw it with the way he teaches the swimming and pummeling.
Oh,
from
yeah.
a double overhook versus the traditional underhook and tie or underhook and overhook.
Yeah, I want to hit on that when we talk about
Yeah.
the AAR for sure.
Yeah.
Go
So, really, yeah, it just, I don't know, training with Craig really woke me up to the importance of the clinch-based work, the grappling more so than striking. I'm now, like I said, I get hit now by light stuff that 5-6 years ago I would have shrugged off, and I'm seeing stars, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably not a good thing. So I'm trying to back off on the striking. Even though, like I said, I like to hit people. But, getting hit.
You just don't like to get hit.
Yeah, no more. Well, it don't, but I'm very aware when I get stuff like that, and I see stars or Tweety birds or something, I'm like, yeah, that's probably not a good thing. So,
well, Guy, you and Cliff and John from a distance have me striking again, at least even on the bag work. My background before any of this was in striking, Muay Thai, and boxing,
right.
but I still have a love for it. But I agree with you. There's, it gets tough on you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to paraphrase Paul Sharp, he says, "Why would I trade punches with you when I can hit you with the planet?"
Right.
Yep. I always love that, man.
See, and I wish I'd really understood, the significance of combat sports for what we do, because I really wished I'd gotten into Muay Thai. I like elbows and knees. I don't like kicking so much anymore. Like I said, I had a back injury that ended up causing surgery, which I've lost probably 95% mobility due to nerve damage in my right ankle. So it's like I really don't like picking feet up off the ground anymore too much. Maybe I should, because I got drop foot, and when I get really tired, it gets real prevalent. And so
I do agree with you on that. I don't really kick anymore myself. Very little. I've been kicking a little bit on the bag just to keep my mobility up.
Right.
Because I did notice when you guys convinced me to start working on it a little more, it's like, man, and I was super flexible. My start was in Taekwondo.
Oh, nice.
And although I'm mad because I stopped wrestling to take Taekwondo, or back when I did wrestling as a young kid and decided wanted to do Taekwondo, I wish I'd have stuck with wrestling. But
I like to say, in the 80s, when all of us thought we wanted to learn how to fight, that we had to go take karate.
Right.
When all of us could have just did the high school wrestling.
The judo club. Yeah, if I don't forgive my mom for one thing, I remember taking me over to the community center to sign me up for judo. I was 5 years old, so what do I know? And she goes, "Oh, that's wrestling. I don't like that." And then signed me up for trampoline. I'm like, okay, cool. At the time, I didn't know. Jump on a trampoline, that's cool. When I got older and learned this, like, oh, that's about the only thing I'm not going to forgive mom for. I was like, man, if I had started judo at 5, that would have led me to wrestling.
Yep.
So, let's see. I also got to train with Mick Koo I think it's C2 Combatives out of England, out of London or Reading. He has a real interesting take on fights, and he calls them GLF, go like fuck. Because what do we do in jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai? We slap, bump, back off, or we fist bump and back off. Well, fight, we're starting here talking off, and next thing we know, we're at the bar, whatever. I grab a bottle and slam it upside the house. Well, fight on, And he has some interesting drills that are real good. And like he'll start you off in a front lean and rest position the first day, and we'll have two safety officers, and they'll be sitting there and he's talking, and you have no idea. And then he'll give thumbs up to the safety officers. Their job is to slam you down on the ground, and your job is to get up and go and collide. It's real interesting, because again, how do we train for the surprise factor of a fight or an assault or an ambush when you're in the gym, the academy, dojo, however we decide to call it? Because whatever you do, there's some fallacy there, or not fallacy, but artificiality. We can't prepare for a real. I can hunt around the corner and jump on you when you come around, but if I'm out on the streets, there's a good chance you're going to stab or shoot me. Or So it's like, that's not a good idea when you think about it. So he has little drills like that. One was closing my eyes, coming up, giving a light pop, sort of like the cognitive overload we do with Cecil or whatever, but have you walk around and come up and give you a light bump right here at the traps and the neck, and it gives you a kind of a shock. And then we'll have you, same thing, doing like the fault, find the threat, and then you go from there. But he's real big on doubling your striking power. His big thing is doubling your striking power, and basically it's a sucker punch. I'm in a fight. I know I'm going to be in a fight. It's just waiting for someone to go. So, and he's like, when someone's running their mouth and you're going to have to fight, you might as well just load up and transfer everything, a hard overhand and end it. He goes, it's a bad thing to get into a fight with someone and realize your short game is better than your long game. And then,
Guy, I have to, I'm sorry, I conflate myself into some of these stories, or actually I'm going to conflate my son. You met my son down in Jacksonville, right?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned overhand. So when he was a young boy, 7 years old, there was nothing to train in Watertown, New York, except for boxing.
Right.
And I mean, it was this old school boxing gym. and I had showed him the overhand right before any of this, and just around the house. And anyway, he would do the drop away down over the top, just as a 7-year-old kid, and he would hit these kids so hard they nicknamed him the Bomber because of that overhand right. So pretty good memories with my son that small.
That's nice. That's awesome. I had a female training partner when I was boxing. I had to be really careful. She would hit. I mean, she's probably 100 pounds, little thing, but she'd catch you with that overhand. But she'd come up, boom. Well, that sucked. And after 4 or 5 times, you knew it was coming sometime. You just didn't know when. But man, you drop that lead hand a little bit, man. She'd jab out real hard, get you thinking about something else, and come over with that overhand.
The overhand right is super elusive. Yeah, it's a good strike. Let's talk about Tenacor. Tenacor continues to innovate with pressure-tested, purpose-driven gear, from holsters to mag pouches, like one of our favorite holsters, the Khartoum 3 AIWB OWB, the Abdo AIWB mag pouch, and now the new finally released Zero belt. This one-of-a-kind belt is made of solid military-grade webbing that isn't overly stiff or over-engineered. It's intended to be comfortable, yet supports your carry gear. One other unique attribute is the buckle feeds the tail under the opposite webbing, providing infinite adjustments, which all purpose-built carry belts should. If you're interested in the Zero belt or any of the mentioned products, visit Tenacor.com and use EVO 2021 at checkout for 10% off.
Yeah. So as far as the training goes at the Vagabond, I will travel for training in a heartbeat.
Yes.
If it's especially someone I want to train with, there's a few people I do want to train with. I'd like to, Timothy said in Jacksonville, they had Jason Kelly had just come through the week before for a class. And it's just like, yeah, I can't compete against that. He's got a name, and so I can't compete against him. I don't fault anybody for going to train with him, but I'd like to train with him. I want to train with Aaron Gennady. He looks like his knife control concepts course looks really, really good. Want to get some more training. Cliff has a bunch of classes to take, and then I want to train again with Redbeard. There's, I look for everybody and anybody in the, I guess for lack of a better phrase, the combatives community. Because, that's where our, non-LEO civilians fight begin is right here. It's not across the street, For us, if I'm a bad guy and I want something from you, I have to be in 0 to 5 feet, And so I figure let's train for the worst case scenario. And then if it doesn't happen, everything else gets real easy. So.
Well, and we talk about this quite often on this show. It's probably something we drive home maybe too much, is that just training in these modalities enhance your mindset to be able to handle so much more than you even realize when you're training in it, right? So just the development alone, it's awesome. Well, speaking of combatives, let's go ahead and segue into the AAR. Now, to me, Guy, I think that what was really cool about this, and so this was the dominating the vertical fight, which is essentially the stand-up clinch portion of the immediate action combatives flagship course, which we did in Tulsa. So we essentially did the same curriculum, but you added some of your take on it too, which again really aided me in taking more away from it. But really, I just a little bit of synopsis of what we did and kind of discussion is so for the audience members know what to expect in this course, because we want them to seek you and Cecil out for these courses. But one of the most common issues you're going to deal with on the street is a ambush attack, right?
Right. Yes.
So we spent a lot of time in dealing with the essentially the sucker punch, right? And one of the things I really wanted to comment on is, I've been training with Craig, Paul. So Craig and Paul and Cecil are my experience with the Shivworks collective, but I've taken Craig's classes more than I can count now. Not as much as you. I think you've got a better count on it. But
I got years of head start, so I'm old, so
we're not too far behind you. I think we're 4 years younger than you. Maybe 48. You said you're 52.
Yeah, I'll be 53 this year in June.
But 4 years is a long time in this walk. If you started 4 years earlier, that makes a difference. Even just using that as a number.
Yeah, and just the changes in all of the material over the years. It's sort of a living creature, for lack of a better term.
I agree.
They're both, Craig is constantly evolving it. Cecil is constantly evolving. I've never taken the same class with any of them, even though I've taken the same class multiple times. Each time it's different.
Agree.
So, So, but yeah, with that, with like I said before, for me to get anything from you, I had to physically get it from you. We're not going to get into the cybercrime and all that, because that's a whole different world. But for me on the street, where the majority of us normal people live and go and do our daily business, for me to get anything from you, I have to be in the 0 to 5 foot range. Whether that's I'm using, a firearm, a knife, an impact weapon of some sort, or my hands, I have to be able to touch you. So we spend a lot of time on the default cover and breaking it down, building it up, I guess, from the ground level up. The vertical elbow shield, the horizontal elbow shield, widening and lowering your base, driving in and making a body lock, body contact. Those parts there, And I would tell anybody, if you get the choice of Craig, Cecil, or me, go train with those two before you train with me, because it's their material. Cecil has, I don't know what the proper authorized me, certified me to teach it, and I can alter it as I see fit. But I'm going to say you go to the flagship people of it. The default cover is probably the most important technique, physical technique. The muck that you would get with Craig on EWO or ECQC probably precedes that. It's probably even more important.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if I can manage that contact, that bad guy or unknown, again, it's an unknown, not really a bad guy yet. They might not decide until, I can take this guy or I can take this girl, and their intentions change. Then they become a bad guy, bad girl, whatever. But if we can manage that, keep them outside, that reactionary range. For me, I would like to see 12, 15 feet plus. If I can keep them about 7 yards away, and instead of encroaching. My coach is 6'3", which for me, that means I have to have a 6'3" distance from him, because we can lunge as tall as we are. Well, the issue beyond that is his wingspan is 87.5 inches. So he should be about 6'8". He broke his both legs and spent, when he was 12, and spent like 6-8 weeks in the hospital recovering. So that growth spurt he probably should have had was a healing, and his legs healed, but the rest of the body grew. So with him, I need feet.
Yeah, I've seen you spar with him. That dude's big.
I've never seen anybody. I've sparred with a lot of people over the years that can change direction of a punch, angle of a punch, mid-flight with power. Come in straight, cross, whatever, and then next thing it's an uppercut or a hook. I'm like, where'd that come from? I saw it coming. It got me over here. Where'd that come from? But yeah, and his grappling's probably even better. He's crazy strong in that.
Yeah, and he practices all of the weapons-based stuff with you. I think's awesome.
Yep. I taught him a lot of that. I'll take pride in that and say it, but I taught him that when we first started. It's like, he's like, and then we started pulling this stuff in and that in. He says, yeah, okay, I understand. And he, what a lot of people don't know about him is he worked professional security. He worked and managed nightclub security for 20 years. And he also did some bodyguarding work around the Dallas area and up for people around here. And he learned same thing. He learned and he's not a gun guy. He's like, so what do we need? What works, what doesn't work. So we have some philosophical differences on it, but overall we get in there and we train, and that's the bottom line,
Awesome. Well, Guy, digressing back just a little bit to the default position instruction that you provided, what I wanted to point out is that, I've been doing that since 2010 myself. It was the first time I took ECQC, but it's been sporadic, and I've attended that 7 times and EWO once. And frankly, it's like when you and I were discussing it, one of the things that both you and Cecil did a really good job, and you really hit on hard in this class, was even though we know the technique, it's easy to allow bad technique to come in if you're not being consistent about getting coached.
Right.
And you were real good about making some corrections that I've let creep in my techniques. I really appreciate that. And then you also had us coach each other through a lot of the techniques, which I think
that's cool.
Which is a really good aspect of training. It puts you on the spot, and there's a couple of times where you feel like, I want to correct the guy, but is he really, it puts you in the position to where you're really having to analyze it. So that was a real good aspect of it too, is you having us coach.
If I can get you to coach and pick up, you learn it faster. And it's, I do that. I can see stuff and go coach it and work it, and I learn it faster. What I worked with my coach yesterday in my private lesson, I was teaching to a couple I teach a couple times a week, husband and wife, today. So we went over some guard passes and breaks that are probably more ideal for someone my size with my injuries. And then, Bonnie, my student, and she's a really small woman. I mean, she's tiny. And some of the stuff you teach, like the knee shield up and breaking, one knee out, one knee in the butt, sitting back, get that knee shield up. Any big guy sweeps her immediately. And we got talking about it. So let's try this. This is what Brad had me working on last night. So I tried this, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that works better for me." She instantly felt she could that. Well, first of all, she comprehended it, and that it made more sense for her due to her size that it would work better. So we worked that, but it's the same thing. I taught her husband the default cover and drive, and a bunch of the Shivworks material. And then when she came in and started training with us, I'd start working with her. I said, "Okay, teach her," and that makes him have to think and analyze, like you said, and pick up and see what needs to be corrected and go from there. I do it when I teach handgun. Like I said, I teach the recoil management that Paul teaches. And then after lesson 2, when we go through it, after I go through we go through, a couple mags and working it through, and I have them walk me through it or talk themselves through it. My job, I believe, as a coach is to make y'all students to be able to diagnose your own mistakes in it and correct them. Because I'm not going to always be there. You travel for work a lot. So if you got to work something and you're working on it and you can correct yourself, that's what I want.
That's awesome.
It's probably a horrible business model because it's like eventually I'm going to teach y'all out of, coaching with me, but I'm doing this.
I don't see that happening.
Right.
Guy, I see what you're saying but I think that causes people to gravitate towards folks like you, Guy. And
and I'll put it this way, Eric, sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it, buddy.
When you're giving of your time like that and you're not proprietary, trying to protect your teaching, your livelihood in teaching, man, I don't think there's any way you can't from a we'll call it sowing seed from a spiritual standpoint. I don't think there's any way you can lose.
No. I want y'all to leave me. And first of all, I want to give you something right off the bat, first day, that you can take out and use. For most people, if they sign up for classes with me, bunch of private lessons, I teach muck right off the bat, muck and the pre-assault indicators. If I can get those through to someone in the first hour and a half, and they leave feeling they understand it, may not be able to do it, but they understand the importance of it, and they can go out and start using it immediately.
Yeah, that is the most important skill right there.
It is.
Yeah.
So that's what I look at. Again, I'm probably not going to stay in the DFW area when I'm eligible to retire. So I want to have a base here of people that can, pick up a phone call or FaceTime me and say, "Hey, what we got here, let's do this and try that," and still be able to coach others, whether it's loved ones or gym mates or teammates, however you want, that they can teach others. And I think that's really important as a coach.
Awesome, Guy. Well, and one of the other aspects of the IA Combatives curriculum using a default position is that you guys add cognitive loads to the clients. And I think that's another crucial part that you guys do very well, and you do it in low pressure. You're not in some, dragged out freaking combatives scenario, which we all love. But I think that's the other thing that you guys bridge with the immediate action combatives curriculum is that it's a good gateway. Like we talked about with John Murphy about, I'm super fascinated with gateways into getting people into the harder training, and what you and Cecil are doing with that curriculum is really helping with that. So I know for the context, or actually for the time that we have in this show, it's hard to really describe everything that we did well and do it justice. But I think it's real important to hit on the clinch work and the in-fight weapons access stuff. And so what I'd like to premise this on before we even talk about the clinch. Guy, can you describe to our audience that may have not heard about this, and if they're avid listeners, they probably have, but if they haven't, why clinch work is so crucial?
Again, it goes back to that 0 to 5 foot range. If I'm a bad guy and I want something from you, I have to be able to touch you. If I can't control your hands, you can do what you want to. And conversely, if I have skills and he doesn't control my hands, I get to do whatever. As far as clinch work, if I can close the distance, that cuts down on him being able to strike me with any power. Again, if I hit in just with that body lock and tuck my head into their chest, this is going to get old, like, water torture does, 100,000 drops, just depending on what your patience is. This might get old after a while, but, that drive-in body lock head here is just a moment in time. We're not going to stay here. This allows us to stabilize. If you want to get into the groundwork in IAC, Cecil has his 7 steps and, survive, defend, stabilize step. So this gets me to the stabilize step, and then that allows me to start working my clinch and whatever. Again, if I can do a duck under, get out the back and disengage without having to go to weapons, or I get more of a positional dominance on the person, I control that fight. As Tom Gibbons says, if you get 2 WTFs out of a person, you've won the fight.
I hadn't heard him say that before.
Oh, you never? Yeah, no,
he said that. That's good.
He said, if you can get 2 what the fucks out of people, you've won the fight.
That's that is classic, yes. Tom Givens, even though I hadn't heard him say it before.
So if you hit muck and you hit that 3 or 9 or someone as they're coming up, and you ask them, hey, hold up for me. The first one is when you step off 3 to 9. They're like, wait a second, that's out of pattern. We're creatures of patterns. We like patterns. So when you step off that line like that, and they having to reorient, well, there's your 1 WTF. They step in and you hit them with that back up, or the verbal flashbang, as Craig says. Hey, back up, back the F up, whatever, however you want to term it. Or you've got 2, and they're going to like, well, this goes from that soft, fluffy porcupine to that porcupine with the quills up, and they're like, I'm going to go over here.
Exactly.
So
harder target.
Yeah. So you just, working that muck, you get those 2 WTFs. Well, it's the same way. Say they failed victim selection. They picked, us, one of us. And hey, we were actually paying attention that day instead of getting sucked in, or we don't have our kids with us, or whatever, and we're just on our game. It's just they picked us at the wrong day, wrong time. We hit that muck, and that don't stop them. They keep encroaching. We encroach. They still encroach, and then they load up, and we hit that default, and we drive in, and we hit that body lock. That's a WTF right there. And most people aren't going to want it. If they want something bad enough for you, it's going to be an ambush. They're going to attack you weapon or shoot you, stab you right off the bat, and take what they want. Most bad guys want an easy payday. And so when you start mucking, or you default and drive on that, and you hit that duck under and push off, push yourself off to get to either your pepper spray or your, pistol or sap or whatever you have, they might go, let's go the path of least resistance and take off running. So the importance of clinch is controlling the hands so that you have access to your weapons and they have access to no weapons. So that's
it right there.
Yeah. That's a long way getting there, but
no, that was great. I mean, you provided some colorful examples of ultimately arriving that you got to control the hands.
Right.
And so ultimately in roughly an 8-hour course, we did a lot, but when you're thinking about the clinch, what you're providing is you're giving the clients an understanding of underhooks, overhooks, bicep ties, wrist ties, 2-on-1s, arm drags, the bundle, the arm bundles, the seat belts, all of that you provide in just about, I mean, roughly we covered that stuff in probably 4 hours, about half of the course, roughly.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And to a lot of people that have never been exposed to that, and I want to give a shout out to John Valentine, which we kind of hit on earlier.
Yep.
Even for folks to understand the difference between underhooks and overhooks and how to even get in the position is very difficult.
Yes.
And that was one of the things I was really pumped about. And I asked John, hey, can I steal that too? Because the standard swimming, which some folks call pummel, which we know that's not the accurate term for it, but the swimming for underhooks, underhook, overhook, that a lot of people, and we warm up, that's a good warm-up drill too.
Yep.
Which you guys also provide in it, but the way that you and the way that John attended to that was starting with a person with double unders, so 2 underhooks under the armpits, and the other person has overhooks over the triceps, and how the person with underhooks just simply has to swim one arm in and swim the other arm in.
Right.
It's like,
that's pretty brilliant.
It really is.
Yeah, it is. It is. When he showed me that, when I took his class in October of 20, and he was showing that, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still in this. He's like,
absolutely.
What? I'm like, that for me, that was really, really simplified teaching it and learning it. Because the people get hung up under the overhook and underhook and how to do it, and but when you start one with double overs and they come in, boom, boom, the next person gets it, boom, boom. Do that for a couple 2-3 minute rounds, and then work from over under, and then get them. It's also good to pair up someone who has some experience with it with someone who doesn't, and let them kind of do it by the numbers. You work, okay, swim, and start working it that way. What I've seen with it is with the traditional overhook, underhook way is a lot of newer people want to try to get both of them at the same time.
Yep.
And they get confused, they get lost, whatever. So
it's a cognitive overload, right?
You do.
That's essentially what it is.
Right, exactly. You get them, overload them, and they're like, so, we want to overload people in the right time frame, context, but not the whole time. So if we can simplify it and distill it down to the most simplest way, it's easier for people to learn. And I'm, like I said, I stole that from John as soon as he showed that, and I'm like, I'm still on this. He goes, what?
Yep.
I've never seen anybody teach it that way, but it makes so much sense. And maybe that's because I have a simple mind.
No,
I don't know.
I don't think that it's that at all, because you're a smart dude, and what I would tell you is, thinking about it through the years that I've tried to teach people just the basics of underhooks and overhooks and how difficult it is, and when you showed that, I'm like, oh man, this is it, man.
It was sort of an epiphany. You're like, what did I think of that? But
yeah,
like, okay.
Eric, I can interject. When you were teaching me that concept, I think one time we were going to have a class. We were going to go take a rolling in the dirt. It probably wasn't rolling in the dirt, but we were going to take a cool carbine class from Frank Proctor, and then I had had my ticket booked and everything.
And it was actually Pat McNamara, wasn't it? Was it Frank Proctor? No, you're right. It was Frank Proctor. It was.
So at the last minute, we find out it was a LE only class. So Eric puts together a private class for me for 2 days as I fly out to see him, and he puts on a badass class, and I learned so much. But that day you started showing me the over and underhook. I was like, dude, what?
I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, I know where I want to be, but I don't understand how to get there. And it just took repetition and training with Cecil, training with Paul and Craig. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And like you said, most people don't understand the difference between the swimming and pummeling. Swimming is the warm-up where you're going, for lack of a better phrase, through the motions and getting it. You're both being, to use Craig's terms, consensual and I just drew a blank on it.
Non-competitive.
Consensual and technical, yes. Right?
Yeah, well, consensual, non-competitive, and technical, where you're working it. And then when you pummel, they're slamming those shoulders into you. And in fact, when I was a police officer in Charlotte and we were going to the jail, there was a sally port we had to go through. I learned real quick because I had another officer, a guy assaulted him, handcuffed behind his back, and beat the daylights out of him with his shoulders. Yep. So, I'd go on the sally port, it may be 3 feet wide by 5 feet, boom, hand in the center of their back against the wall. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get beat like that.
I mean, look at MMA fighters use the shoulder strike all the time. Very effective.
If you get in high level jiu-jitsu, it's, cross-facing is a strike when you come in.
Bingo, man.
That bicep or that shoulder deltoids. Yeah, I mean.
Hey, the cross-face from side control is an incredible tool. Let's take a minute to talk about Origin. Origin supports us on the path. To quote Jocko, if you listen, then you know. They produce the best jiu-jitsu gis on the market, rash guards, spats, and Jocko Fuel supplements. They make t-shirts, hoodies, leather boots, and belts, with all their products made in the USA by U.S. workers, bringing manufacturing back. If you're interested in any of these Origin products, please go to our show notes and click on the affiliate link. You can also find our affiliate link on our website, evosec.org, in our blog page. Also use EVOSEC10 at checkout for 10% off. The biggest takeaway from the IA Combatives curriculum with the clinch is that I enumerated all of the techniques that you guys cover in an afternoon, and the way that it's taught in an afternoon, it's hard for people to understand. And of course, a lot of us have experience in it, but I want to comment about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had all kinds of clinch wrestling through the years, and it's always impressive to me when I go to an ECQC or when I trained with Jason Kelly. Jason Kelly's got a very different, I think you should train with him for sure. You'll get a lot out of it. He's got a very different approach, but I took away the stuff that worked from Jason for me. But it's always amazing to me. Like, this is the second time I had the IA Combatives curriculum for the clinch, and I still took away new information, new epiphanies. But I really want to make sure the audience understands that if they take this class, so they're going to learn all these techniques. Mm-hmm. And I'm not at all going to enunciate the 4 phrases, because you got to pay to get those 4 phrases. So,
and only because it's so profound.
Yes,
I'm not saying
you won't. Yeah, we would cheat any person. We wouldn't just cheat Cecil and Guy. We would cheat the clients the opportunity to go through that epiphany with those 4 phrases. And so, just like, so Guy provides all the techniques, and then provides at the very end of the class, provides those 4 phrases. And then all of a sudden, even the guys that were wrestling before, that had wrestling experience, were really wrestling. And I think it's important that it's like, man, that's one of the coolest parts about the curriculum, and regarding what I learned again is continuing to drive home how those 4 phrases mentally cue us to wrestle properly. So, and it's not, and I want to talk, I'll hit on that. It's not wrestling for wrestling's sake, to quote Craig. It's wrestling for a specific end state and that's being able to, get to a positional dominance and control the hands, and if necessary, access a weapon, keep them from accessing theirs, and going home safe. So, yeah.
Well, Eric, I can't let this opportunity go by without saying it like this. I remember that afternoon when Cecil was here in Tulsa, and we worked so hard all weekend long, and then he breaks that stuff out, and it was like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. And he brings it in, and I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened here?
You're like, I just spent 6 hours learning all this other stuff, and now you give me this?
And I mean, I think everybody in that room was like jaw open and like, dude, you just literally blew our minds.
Right.
And we don't, it's got to be careful not to say all this stuff and have listeners going, man, they're just bloviating and being hyperbolic, but no. It's some of the best stuff I've ever been in a room to hear and witness, and then apply and go, my gosh, this freaking works, and I just learned this 1 minute ago.
And you can recite those 4 phrases to yourself. When you're in your normal training venue, and it aids. I am huge on mental cues these days. I think that that's something we try to drive home to our audience members is simple cues, and those 4 cues are monumental and really cool, and I think that's why we want people to go out and take these classes with you guys in immediate action combatives, because they're going to get the same epiphany, even if you've had a lot of wrestling. So it's really, really cool stuff.
That's one of the reasons I have so many hours with Craig and Cecil and Paul, because like I said, every time you go, it's not only a different variation of the same class. I always learn something. I mean, like I said, I went down and assisted Craig and Cliff and Scotty Oates, and Sonny Bazookas came out. AI for Craig and the ECQC, and I still have, I use my phone nowadays, the notepad. I have more notes, and I just keep adding to the notes. It's stuff. Oh, I forgot this, and okay, here we go. So it's just like, okay, you will always learn something. If you're not learning something, it's either because you're being purposely obtuse or just refusing to listen and learn.
Well, we have those people, but
there are, but
but rarely do they show up to these classes, though.
You beat me to it, Aaron.
Yeah, there's a few. Got a few that's like, I didn't learn anything. You're like, I took that class, and I've been doing this a lot longer than you, and I learned something. So
it just means they're closed-minded.
They are, yeah. I think that's what it is. But it's just like,
unfortunately for them, right?
It is. It's just like lots of material out there and lots of stuff to learn. And you take 1 or 2 classes, and I got it, cool. It's like I was talking to Steve Moses. I think it was last year we got talking, and he's like, he understood default drive, but he didn't understand default drive. Where, and I was, you just he had everything and he's doing it, but he always thought there was like a kind of, I don't know, a pause there. But as soon as you widen and lower your base and your feet hit, you should be moving. You shouldn't stand there. I mean, as soon as you hit that fault cover, you widen and lower your base, you should be moving as soon as you got traction. And it goes again, that works with the 4 phrases we're talking about. It's all the same. But, it shouldn't be default, then drive, default, drive. It should default drive. It should be all one run on.
Awesome.
Word. Yeah. I mean.
Well, and to that, all the clinch, you added the in-fight weapons access, both blade and pistol. You also spent a lot of time on the number 2 thumb pectoral index that of course we all derived from Craig Douglas's ECQC.
Right.
But you did a great job of enunciating details that sometimes can't be covered just because you had the additional time. So,
right.
And of course, you had us drilling in fight weapons access within the wrestling base, and man, just outstanding content. And I think most importantly that folks, when they understand if they've not had training in this modality, and I'm just speaking specifically about clinch work, because we love our jiu-jitsu, we love all of that, but this is another avenue, Guy, and I'd like your opinion on this, to develop our mindset. You know, when you're grappling in a standing clinch, any type of grappling, but this is just another modality that when you're trying to wrestle for position, any of these underhooks, double unders, ties, any of it against a resisting opponent, man, it makes you dig down deep when you've been doing it for 4 hours, right?
Yes, it does. The phrase "become comfortable with being uncomfortable," which I learned from Paul Sharp years ago. Yep. He can tell you who he learned it from, but yeah, it is when you're there and you're like, oh, I just want to go sit down or whatever. It sucks. I'll tell on myself. When I took John's class, I ended up with someone that probably, I don't know, at least 100 pounds heavier than I am.
Wow.
And we started off with a clinch, and they had gloves, and they started boom. And I remember I thought he took me down because I'm standing up, vertical. Next thing, I'm horizontal looking up, and I'm like, I want to tap. He came down. He's in my guard. I'm like, oh, God, I'm tired. I want to tap. And I'm like, wait, this is a street note. And I started working up. And then, John limits the amount of time you're in that situation, that context. And then we had some more stuff to do after that. But I do remember thinking, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, going, this sucks. This guy's bigger than me, and I just don't want to be here. I want to tap. And I'm like, I can't. And I started working, controlling the arms, started working up. I was going to, go for a triangle or omoplata or double arm bar from there. And then John timed me out. Then I had to get up and run. And then we had a shooting neck FTX to do. And then, 20 seconds to apply a tourniquet on a victim, a shooting victim.
Nice.
And it's just like, but yeah, when that guy, like I said, I went from vertical to horizontal, and I have how did I get here? I mean, it was just, and, everybody wants to talk about, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to break fall. But when you get in a class like there where you have to dig down and things don't go your way, you have to dig down. You have to think about what the ramifications are if this was a live, real scenario. What I told people years ago when I trained like knife stuff and all, if you want to make this real and you really want to work on knife defense and not getting stabbed and cut it off, go look up now that you can do it with YouTube and all this, or before I had to go look in books, some like the Masayu books and all with stabbing and shooting victims. Go see what a knife does to someone. Yes, and then every time you get hit with a knife with your helmet on or in the body, think about that wound. Now it makes it more real, now it's like, oh, I've seen that picture and that's a pretty nasty cut or a potentially nasty cut. I don't want to be in this. I want to be in a better place. So, stuff, little mental cues like that, visualization, work that next time you're working some knife and someone's slamming that knife into your fist helmet or your RBC helmet or whatever. And you're like, oh, now that makes it more real to you. Now you have a visual cue without having to actually suffer it. And you'll start working harder. You'll really dig down then. You're like, I got to control this arm. I got to get control of this guy and go from there.
That's a great explanation, Guy, in how we develop mindset, both the digging deep down, the visualization, the we've been there before, the novel exposure to what our brain sees as an actual life or death situation, even though it's in a training environment.
Right.
And that's why we drive home. And I know it becomes that we're beating a dead horse. But again, this may be the first time that somebody's heard this show.
Right.
So sometimes we drive that, but well, Guy, we're starting to get a little long here.
Okay, yeah, we are. I was like, I don't know if I can talk that long, but I guess I can.
well, the cool part is, Guy,
okay,
is we'll just have you on again.
Please do. I really enjoy talking to y'all guys and company.
And we're actually not done, but I did want to segue, and just to close that piece out, guys, seek out immediate action combatives with Guy or Cecil Burch. You will benefit greatly. So, with that said, what are your current plans as an instructor for your future?
I have I'm trying to swing my schedule right now. Bill Rapier of AMTAC, Miracle Tactical Shooting. He's gonna be up in Jones, Oklahoma. I'm sorry, up in Jones, Oklahoma, at David Cago's place, the end of April. I'm trying to get myself up there to take his low visibility close quarters class. Cliff took it last year. Highly recommended it. So that's that. And probably in June, I'll probably be up in Mead Hall and try to take the Cecil Burch, Chuck Haggard, and Daryl Bulkey NPE counter robbery course.
Oh, nice.
So,
God, all these training opportunities, man, and in Oklahoma too.
That's really what drives me crazy about DFW. We got like 7 million people in this area, in the whole metroplex. There's like 72 cities, municipalities, 72 municipalities here. And, if we could get 1,000% to train, not necessarily with me, but anywhere, take class. We can host a class every weekend and have a different group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, but man, trying to get people to train, it's crazy. But whatever Bill's doing up there in Mead Hall, he's doing good. So I plan to be up there, and after that, maybe probably revolver roundup in November. If I can get that. There's something else on my mind I'm thinking about.
What about classes that you're teaching, buddy? You got any of those planned soon, or
no? Not right now.
Okay.
I know Timothy was talking about bringing me back for the ground portion of IAC. Which if he does, I'll be more than happy. Come out there and teach that. Have a ball. Again, it's 2 hours door to door from my mom's to the gym, so it's like, oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I was real happy for you that you got to go spend time with your mom. And it was cool. It was cool hanging out with you again too. So
it was great seeing you. I want to get back up to Tulsa. I want to say there's a class up there. Cecil will be back up there. That's what it is.
I was going to say, Guy, you need to come up in September.
Okay.
To be honest, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it's going to be I think it's somewhere around the 20th of the month, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But yeah, is that rough?
My my youngest stepdaughter is getting married the 17th of September.
Man, let's I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a look at this.
Okay. So I know he's going to be in Austin in August. I was trying to remember what the order was, and then back up in Tulsa in September.
Well, all I'm saying is it's like I leave Oklahoma to join the Army, 2000.
Yeah.
And man, it's like Oklahoma's been representing ever since in the and a lot of people don't. I mean, heck, I didn't know all that was going on in Oklahoma, especially as I was gone.
Yeah,
when I was in my time in the Army.
I went up there. First class I took up in Tulsa was EWO in 2007, and that was the first time I made many trips up there, especially after I started training with Cecil. I know like 11. I was up there 11, 12. I was up there 2 or 3 times, helping Cecil or training with Cecil, and then again in like 13 or 14. So.
Well, and Tulsa's had TACCon.
Mm-hmm. I missed that. I just never picked up on TACCon until 13. I know they were doing and it never clicked to me what they were. And I remember Tom, the first time I trained with Tom in 2009, he was telling me about it. But I thought I didn't realize, I thought it was more of a closed event, like invite only.
I think that's the way I saw it too. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I'm embarrassed to say I've known about TACCon for years and been trained with Craig and Cecil, and they were doing TACCon in it's actually south of Chehalis in Washington. Right. They're at FAS with Marty Hayes, and I missed those, and I was living right there. So I'm telling on myself there. So,
same way. It's like, I think Tom told me first time in 2009, yeah, you should come up. I'm like, okay. Didn't really click and follow up on it. And now it's like, oh man, I was ignorant.
Now we didn't hit on that, Guy. You're a graduate of the Rangemaster Master Instructor Development, correct?
Yes, I am. Yep,
that's money.
Completed that in October. So all 3 of the pistol classes and the shotgun instructor class. So all 4 of his instructor classes I've been through, or IDCs.
Awesome. So yeah, Aaron and I have advanced in June.
So, you have a ball. It's a really good one.
Awesome.
Anything once you get past the first one, and no more tests.
So there's no more tests. That just made me happy.
Shotgun instructor.
I think you're right. I don't think there's any tests.
I'm trying to remember.
A written test, but there's still shooting tests.
There's skills. There's skills.
There's shooting quals.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah. And
but the written test, that written test, for a lot of people, I know I studied my ass off for it. That's another subject we probably talk about.
Wayne Dobbs and Darryl Bulke hosted them for the first time in 2014, and I mean, literally, I was up at 5 a.m. Once day through, I was up at 5 a.m. every morning reading and studying the book. I was up every night to 11, 12, reading and studying the book. And, probably some of the best shooting I ever done was that class too. I took Top Gun with a 300 with Wayne Dobbs.
That's badass, brother.
Yeah. Difference is Wayne Dobbs' group was like this. Mine was more like this, but I still got it in the 8-inch circle. But I mean, it's like everything came together. Yeah. And then it's gone downhill since, but
I don't believe that.
Okay. But it's really good. I mean, I think anybody that's into this wants to be a firearm instructor needs to go through his courses.
Yeah,
at least the IDC, the first one.
Well, hey, real quick.
Okay.
Cecil's going to be here the 24th and the 25th.
Ooh.
So I don't. Dude, you better work some stuff out. Tell you said your daughter's getting married. Tell her to change the date.
I think it's the 17th, so it's the weekend before. So
you're good to go.
Oh, that'd be good.
No, buddy, I'm just razzing you. If you can come, it'd be awesome.
Well,
but don't feel bad if you can't.
Years ago, Farrell Munson was going to bring Paul Sharp in about 10, and maybe it was 11. And he was going to bring him in and do his MDOT course down in Houston. I'm going. And then it's like my wife's birthday weekend. And I was talking to a buddy. He's like, you can't go, Guy. Co-worker guy. I was training just. He's like, you can't go. Do the right thing. You got to go to the Shiner. Go to your wife's birthday. I'm like, I don't want to. I want to go train with Paul Sharp. And I like, begrudgingly said, okay, I go.
She'll have her birthday next year.
Oh, that's what I said. But for some reason, they get kind of upset when you say that. Oh, there'll be one next year.
Believe me.
So,
I'm a person that's missed a lot of birthdays and anniversaries, unfortunately, due to my job.
I missed our first anniversary. I looked at the schedule wrong and got put on a trip to Paris.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
Aren't you? When's your 25 coming up? Has it already hit?
Yeah, it has. It's my 26th this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
Becky and I have our 25th here in October, and I'm planning a trip. One that I don't have to go out of the country, but at least try and get close to out of the country.
Right.
I'm not flying international with all this crap going on.
Yeah,
Never mind. I'll stop right there.
I don't blame you. It's like, well, when I did that trip to North Carolina at the beginning of last month, it took me 26 hours to get to North Carolina.
Guy, you told me that story, man. I felt horrible for you, man.
Oh, the funny thing. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to. That was planes, trains, and automobiles, Aaron. But it was just planes.
It was airports. It was get there. I kept checking. When Southwest said they were canceling everything on Thursday out of love, I started checking American's app. On time. I got up like 5 a.m. because my coach and I were going to train. And he said, let's, at like 5:30 or 6, he said, let's not do this today. We rescheduled and kept checking the app. Still on time. Left the house at 9. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I got to the airport by 9:30. And then I get up there, check in, do my little song and dance with them, and still on time. And about 10:20, they pushed it back 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, here we go. Come up about 10:50, they pushed it back another 15 minutes. Yeah, we're not going. 11:20, they canceled. Tried to get on the next flight. All the directs were done for the day or canceled to Raleigh from DFW. So I had to go through Miami. Tried to get a 12:54 flight. It says I couldn't book it, so I booked a 3:15. And I don't know if I did something wrong or something changed in the app. Like 5 minutes later, I was able to get the 12:54 flight. We ended up leaving like 6.5 hours late it was a comedy errors. FO went illegal, so they had to find another one. And the fastest I've ever seen an FO, it was less than 45 minutes. They had a new FO on the plane. Then they had a mechanical. Okay, no problem. This happens. Yeah, generally with mechanicals, the paperwork takes longer than the fix. They were done in 45 minutes. I'm like, man, this is okay. Yeah, for cancellation delays, this is going pretty good. Then it took like an hour to find a ground crew to push us off. Oh, wow. And I sit on that plane. I'm like, yeah, I've got enough miles. I'm done with this.
I remember.
So ended up missing everything out of Miami. Had an unexpected overnight in Miami. Got to Raleigh about 11:30 home Friday. I'm like, I could have drove and still probably made it in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So did you go to the marathon counter and yell the F-bomb 17 times?
No. Not a good idea.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Which one? Was that, I'm drawing a blank. You have to refresh.
Steve Martin.
It's planes, trains, and automobiles. Hey, I've counted it. He says the F word 17 times there.
Wow.
So I was just double checking you didn't do that at the marathon booth.
4 effing wheels and a effing seat.
Welcome to Marathon. How may I help you?
I just go with the flow. It's an airplane, weather, just do what. But I mean, there's one point I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm really tempted to just go back to the house, but no, I got Eric and Pan students, so I'm going. I'm going to get there one way or another.
Awesome.
So
I was on your mind, Guy.
Oh yes, you were. I'm like, let me get there. So
awesome. Well, hey, real quick.
Okay.
We've reached the muck of our show, the most important part.
Right.
What are your 3 favorite bands or musical artists?
Okay. All-time favorite are the Eagles. Love them. I have since the 70s at least. Second one right now, and has been for the last probably 10, 12 years, ever since they came out with 5-Finger Death Punch.
Wow. That's a big change.
It is. I'm a heavy metal. I am a real heavy metal fan.
Rock on.
And then last several years, the third one would be Sabaton. I love their music. I love what they sing about, what they play, the warrior ethos and warrior spirit. And if you listen to Winged Hussars and don't get pumped, I don't know. I don't know if we can be friends. I'll be honest. And then their the Lost Battalion. I think that's an awesome song, but I'm probably a little weird like that. So.
No, for music, weird is good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. Good answers, buddy.
Thank you.
Excellent answers.
Well, I think we're gonna have to tie a bow on this one, buddy.
Yeah.
Let you go and spend some time with your awesome wife, and
I will. Thank you.
Make sure you don't plan any classes on her birthday this year.
Try not to. She's got a couple international trips out of the last couple of years, so on her birthday. So I might have a little leeway, right. But not much. So.
Well, awesome. Well, Guy, this has been a pleasure, buddy. It's been a long time coming. And your support of our show when we were brand new was really cool. We'll always remember that. And frankly, man, it's just good training with you. You're an awesome instructor.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we look forward to the next time of training with you. So,
hey, more than anything, you're a cool dude.
Thank you. I like to think so, but I don't know. Everybody not agree with it, but I try to do what I do, and I love teaching. Actually, I love probably coaching might be the better versus teaching. I really like to dig in one-on-one, and sometimes you don't get to do that. But if I get one-on-one time, that's what I like. I really like to get the nuance, as you say, get the nuance in and build that in with everybody.
Awesome.
Excellent.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
You guys have a good evening now.